Okay, we're going to get going over here at the Bitcoin mining stage. We're going to be talking about ASIC hardware, but first we're going to give it over to Riot Platforms' Brian Morgenstern. We have a special announcement from him first, and then we'll get over to ASIC hardware.
Thanks, Will, and I'm glad Lee's here because I wanted to just take a moment to highlight a great initiative. Unfortunately, the state of Texas lost a true gentleman and a giant in the energy industry earlier this month. Brad Jones was probably best known for his time as the interim president and CEO at ERCOT. He was taken from us far too soon, but we wanted to carry on his legacy of being a friend and mentor to many. And so Riot is one of the sponsors of the Brad Jones Engineering Scholarship. And so we wanted to highlight this and let you all know about it. It'll be at Texas Tech, which is Brad's alma mater. There is a link about this at the ERCOT website. Right on there, it says In Memoriam, and you can click on it, and there's information on that scholarship. So Riot's contributing to it. We're proud to do that. After his time at ERCOT, Brad became really a terrific advocate for Bitcoin in the industry and everything that we can do in terms of grid balancing in Texas. And he became an advisor to the Texas Blockchain Council, where I'm lucky enough to sit on the board, and he became an advisor to Riot Platforms. And we really appreciated all of his efforts and his expertise and his kindness and his helpfulness. So just wanted to take a moment to highlight that and encourage everybody, if you're so inclined, to contribute to the Brad Jones Scholarship. It's going to be for engineering students to help them complete their education and hopefully someday leave as big an impact on Texas as he did. So I just wanted to make that announcement, encourage everybody to participate. In memoriam, thank Brad for all of his service. Thanks a lot for listening, and have a good day. Enjoy the panel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody having a good time? All right. I know we've got a couple more panels here, and then the Satoshi Action Dinner tonight, and then all of the other after parties that will follow. Let me bring up my co-panelists here. Of course, we have our mining stage sponsors, Auradine. So Sanjay Gupta is head of business development in Auradine. He's going to make his way to the stage. Ashu Swami at Marathon, Taylor Monig, Perry Hathi. Taylor and Perry, can you join us at the stage as well? Y'all give them a round of applause as they make their way to the stage. This is about the changing landscape for ASIC hardware. ASIC hardware, as we all know, has been dominated by a couple of companies, and they've made really good products, and people use those products. And you guys represent some of the greatest minds in some additional engineering that has come to the fore over the last couple years that are driving the industry forward in terms of joules per terahash, efficiency, hash rate, all that stuff. So before we dive into the questions, I'd ask for y'all to just introduce yourselves. Perry, we'll start with you, and tell the audience a little bit about your background and a little bit about your engineering technical prowess too.
My name is Perry. I'm currently the solutions architect with Block, where we're designing the mining development kit. Before that, I was at Argo Blockchain. I was a CTO there. The last project we built there was the Helios facility in West Texas.
Hey guys, my name is Taylor Monig, Senior Vice President of Mining at CleanSpark. Previously the CEO of TMG Core, so I've got a technical experience with both single-phase, two-phase immersion, along with designing actual miners themselves.
Hi everybody, my name is Sanjay Gupta, and I lead strategy and business development for Auradine. I personally have an undergrad in electronics engineering, but beyond that I've got around 30 years of experience in the industry, in a variety of sectors, including fintech, financial services, management consulting. And I represent Auradine. We're a high technology, Silicon Valley-based company, and would love to talk more about what we're doing in the space, along with my co-panelists.
And I'm Ashu, CTO of Marathon for the last 20 months. Started my career as a hardware engineer at Intel, then worked on Wall Street as a trader for about 10 years. Came to the crypto industry in 2017 as we were going from this transitioning from home-based hobby miners to large industrial mining complexes, and been in the mining industry since then. Right now at Marathon, we're looking at innovations in custom firmware, pool, deployment technology like immersion solutions, and across the vertical technical stack.
Gentlemen, let's start with the chip, and then we'll expand into firmware and some of the other kind of the arguments around immersion and air-cooled. So at the chip level, what are the greatest innovations that we've seen? What, I guess, nanometer level, if you can disclose that, are you guys most excited about? Is it the kind of the cheaper, less efficient, 5-7 nanometers, or the more expensive 5 and under nanometers?
Well, currently we are on 5 nanometer with the XPs. We have the world's first 4 nanometer chip, which has been announced by Aurodyne. We don't know what S21 is. Could be 4 nanometer, could be 3 nanometer. But I'm sure before the end of next 6 months, we will have a 3 nanometer chip, either from Aurodyne and maybe potentially from other companies as well. So this is a race which has been going on since for as long as we can remember. I would like for this cycle to come to an end at some point, because then we can just rest and look at other innovations beyond this mad race. But for now, this is what it is.
Yeah, I'd say over CleanSpark, we're definitely more excited about the more efficient machines, given the price, the difficulty, everything like that. It's a good way to mitigate risk by constantly having the most efficient, lowest watts per terahash machine. And I also think it gives you a lot of flexibility, right? So if you build your sites with some ability to overclock, underclock, a little bit of flexibility with the firmware, things like Aurodyne are doing, gives you the ability that if there is a bull market, price goes crazy, you're able to overclock, take advantage of all of that, but the price continues to stay low, underclock, stay in business. Definitely a good move.
And maybe, Lee, I'll take your question a slightly different way. So I think what is more important than, what the nanometers and the size is, and I'll come to that in a moment, is really what is the value that this innovation is driving, right? And we know that for Bitcoin mining, it's really important. Efficiency is really important. The ability to deal with low voltages is critical. The ability to get performance is critical. And the ability to have value added on top of this layer is critical. So for that, we as a technology company are ensuring that we're innovating in the most advanced ASIC technology that supports it. And that is, like Ashu was mentioning, we announced that we are the world's first 4 nanometer based ASIC a few months ago. We're further advancing on that, so we're taking the benefit of the latest engineering and ASIC technology around the world. But the intent is to drive value for the mining community. We had a talk just yesterday where we talked about the halving and post-halving. It's going to be even more critical to be driving energy efficiency and performance. And for that, innovating and investing in this latest technology is going to be critical, not just for today, but we think for tomorrow, and winning in that on an ongoing basis.
So economies of scale, Perry, matter a lot, and your relationship with the foundry matters a lot too. And there's only 2 in the world, TSMC and Samsung, that really have the capabilities to perform at the level. Intel is now in the game, and they are a great American company that is able to compete on that and that very small group of companies. How important is it for you guys to have those established relationships with the foundries and to have that economy of scale to drive down your costs?
I mean, I think it's obviously very important. We kind of look at it, we're in a little bit of a different game than the guys at Aurodyne and CleanSpark and Marathon. We're working on the mining development kit, where efficiency isn't, as crazy as it may sound in Bitcoin mining, efficiency isn't at the forefront. It's more of a kind of a building block for the mining community, so we can get, the people who want to basically, whether it's mine at home or build neat applications, the tools to do that. And part of that is to decentralize, mining as much as we can. And I think that goes hand in hand with, if we can have more foundries, more people mining, it all really ties in together.
And I'll pass the same question over here, because I know you guys have deep standing relationships with the foundries, and that just plays such a big role. First of all, how have those relationships evolved, and are the barriers to entry such that you have to have either those relationships or incredible scale to break through?
So great question, Lee. And I'll just build up on that on 2 dimensions. So today, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, all of the Bitcoin mining ASICs and the suppliers are based out of China, nearly to the fullest extent, with the exception of some small percentage. And we think that that is a risk to the overall Bitcoin protocol itself. Because you talked about Bitcoin being the need for it to be decentralized. We have Bitcoin mining, which is decentralized, and we have North America, which itself is mining around 45% of the global hash rate. But to have 100% of the ASIC supply come from China, we think is risky on a number of dimensions. So one of the key reasons behind our company is that we are based in the US, we're Silicon Valley based, we do our design, our engineering of the chips in the US. And we think that that's critical from an overall risk and decentralization point of view. In terms of the technology itself, you're right, TSMC and Samsung are the two leaders. There's Intel as well in the mix, which also does fabrication of chips. TSMC, for the people that are not aware, they're the ones who also do the fabrication for companies like Apple. So your Apple iPhones, they're fabricated there. The NVIDIA generative AI chips are fabricated there as well. And having a relationship with these top foundries is critical. So one of the things that we've had is that in our team, we have a very long-standing relationship with TSMC from a number of generations of technology, even outside of Bitcoin. In other high technology areas, we think that that relationship is critical, but at the same time, not being dependent upon one supply is critical. So we are in discussions with all the leading foundries around the world in ensuring that we have an ongoing reliable supply of ASIC chips, the latest, most current, and the most diversified supply base.
Let's change a little bit of directions here and talk sort of up the technology stack and talk a little bit about the firmware. That's been a constant challenge for miners, right? You guys have been breaking into firmware for decades, and the whole industry has. How much of an advantage does that provide to the end user for a Marathon or a CleanSpark when you know, now you can be a little bit more collaborative with the OEM?
No, I mean, I think it's huge from multiple perspectives, right? Not only for, like I said, in a bull market with the overclocking, being able to just extract free hash rate is invaluable. In a market like today, being able to underclock and react to power markets very quickly is also, a big added benefit. But the biggest thing is flexibility, right? Like when you started S7s, S9s, wherever it is you started, you bought a 14 terahash miner, you're stuck there no matter how hot, how cold, what's going on in the energy market, you're just stuck at whatever it is. The firmware really gives you the flexibility to take the next step in your business, start tarring into all the ERCOT, stuff like that, being able to turn on, turn off very quickly. I think firmware, that is something that's been overlooked in the market for a very long time, and it's really exciting to not only see companies like Vinish and Luxor and Brain starting to produce really high-end products, because for a long time they were very rudimentary, but also companies like Aerodyne and Chain Reaction that are taking the advice of users like myself and Ashu and some of the other large-scale miners in developing all the feature sets you see in Vinish and Brains into the miners themselves, right? So it just gives you incredible flexibility, a lot more control in your business, and something that I think people should have been working on a long time ago.
I think firmware is really, really important in this industry. And it goes back to your previous question, how does this play a role against the constant chasing the efficiencies? See, the thing is, initially, mining was thought of as a refinery or something which converts energy into a monetizable monetary asset. Now it's playing a different role. Now it's very integral to load response systems, to harvesting standard power behind the meter, all those things. And this is where the custom firmware from one of these companies that you mentioned about, and we build and use our own firmware, comes into play. Because A, you have a firmware which can now monitor power prices and the machine efficiency and profitability and do curtailments real time. B, depending on the power prices and the profitability of the machine, there is a lot of room on this machine to actually tweak and play with the DVFS and change the profitability, tweak the ratio of the profitability and the throughput. So it can constantly optimize that lever and give you the best bang for your money. So I think firmware is very important, and no miner who is seriously concerned about the viability and profitability of their mining, especially after having, can choose to ignore the firmware aspect of mining.
Just to add to that, I think one of the things that we see in this space, it's still such a really young space, and there's applications that we wouldn't have dreamed of 5-10 years ago. 10 is a long time. We've got people mining with landfill methane. I think Marathon's leading the way in that. And you've got variable, gas coming in. The miners have to scale. There's applications that require firmware that haven't even been developed yet. One of the reasons that we want to make sure whatever we build, we can open source, is so people can take full advantage of those APIs and those applications, and use as much stranded power anywhere that it may be present, and really bring Bitcoin mining to that cutting edge. Yeah.
Can I just add on to that? Because we've been getting great feedback from Taylor, from Ashu, from Perry, and others in the industry. And we said the firmware is absolutely critical from a value add perspective. One of the areas or inputs we got feedback from was the need for energy demand response. And that's something we also hear in Texas with ERCOT. We heard that from Texas A&M that's doing a lot of research in the area. So one of the areas that we focused upon was what we call energy tune. And that is the ability to rapidly increase or decrease the amount of energy that the miner is consuming within seconds. And so therefore, if there is an additional need from the grid to curtail, you can do that. If there's suddenly a need to increase the hash rate because all of a sudden the Bitcoin price is increasing or the transaction fees are increasing or the energy price is going down, you can rapidly do that. So we're actually trying to do away with the term of under and overclocking, but it's like you have a car and you don't talk about under or over accelerating. You talk about driving it at whatever speed you want. And that's the theme that we're building into our firmware as well, is the ability to drive it at whatever rate you want, depending upon the conditions in the market and for yourself as a miner.
So I'm going to step a little bit outside of my comfort zone and talk about something that's more technical that you guys are going to be very comfortable talking about. Prasad Anjeti, Professor Dr. Anjeti at Texas A&M, received the Educator of the Year award last night at our dinner. And he and several of his colleagues have been working alongside you guys around this issue of low voltage ride through, which I know is very important for grid operators. And as the communication is now flowing in both directions, and you guys are all in communication with them, and it's been very, I think, fruitful. How challenging is that on a go-forward basis? Of course, we can't do it retroactively, but on a go-forward basis, adding some transistors to the, and maybe there's a firmware solution mixed with a physical implementation solution on the PSU. Would love to hear y'all's thoughts on that.
I think there's, depending on how far you want to go back, like ERCOT will always have different brackets as well for demand response and what they want to balance. And so some of the older equipment may require some changes in the infrastructure of the facility itself. But this is why when you have, people building in the U.S. for the U.S. grid, like Auradine is, they can kind of work hand in hand with ERCOT. And instead of just buying a miner from overseas that wasn't really designed with this in mind, you can buy something that, you talk to ERCOT and say, what would you like to see different? Because I think there's 2 gigawatts right now on ERCOT's grid. That's not a small amount of power. And the economics for miners, it's the price of Bitcoin, price of electricity. Well, the price of Bitcoin is the same for everyone. Price of electricity, if your machines are relatively similar, you're going to hope. So those 2 gigawatts can swing pretty quick. And then when there's a low voltage ride-through event, it can exacerbate that. So I think having, hardware, firmware, software all done here will make a huge difference. And working hand in hand with ERCOT is an advantage that I think we all have that, manufacturers overseas don't have.
Yeah, well, kudos to TBC, first of all, for getting that initiative rolling and University of Texas Austin involved in that process. See, the problem lies in 7 years ago when this mining industry came up. They were all, as you remember, they were all hobby miners running miners in their basement. So the best mining design was the shoebox, which was a modular unit with its own PSU and everything, and not have to worry about destabilizing the grid. Now things are different. Now you have 100, 200 megawatt data centers, and you have to think about those implications which previously could be ignored. That communication feedback loop does not exist today. So any solutions we do on the PSU end, we add a few capacitors, is going to be a band-aid solution. You will have to add close to 150 capacitors to just give our low voltage ride through of 100 milliseconds. And the guideline is for at least 150 milliseconds. A better approach is to provide a better quality PSU, which has a wide voltage range support, which is going to be expensive, obviously. But as you know, this is a commodity industry in the ASIC world, and people are just chasing the cheapest PSU. Doesn't matter what the price, efficiency is. So I think what should happen is we should start including ASIC vendors in those meetings, Bitmain, Auradine, Epic, whoever it is, and emphasize that if we are going to buy your machines to deploy in utility-based 200 megawatt grids, this is the table stakes. You need to provide this kind of support and quality.
And I just build on that. Well, first of all, Lee, thanks to you for making the introduction and to TBC. Lee actually introduced us to Texas A&M and Professor Prasad and JD. And we've had several discussions with both him. He has another professor, Professor Shi at Texas A&M, that are doing some really leading edge research in this area. We also spoke to ERCOT, and that's one of the benefits of being here in the US locally. We've had multiple discussions. It is a complex technical request and ask. We think that there are ways around it, like Ashu is indicating. There are different approaches, but we're in active dialogue. That's one of the reasons why we've also gifted one of our miners to Texas A&M for research. We want to work very closely with them to understand this low voltage ride through, as well as any other requirements that are needed from the grid, and do some joint research together on the area. We think it's solvable, but it's a question about what is the best technical approach and the one that's also the most economical as well. But we're going to work on it.
Okay, so as we think about decentralizing mining, there's a couple things. There's the manufacturing, there's the pools, there's even the individual miners. Perry, what are the reasons? Because individual miners will never have the same power price as what we can see at the large scale wholesale prices. What are the reasons that people are telling you when they're using the miner development kit, or when they're looking at home mining or hobby mining? Is it philosophical? Is it there's obviously they need to be profitable, or they don't need to be, but you'd like them to be? What are the reasons that you guys are getting on that front?
So thank you for that. I guess one thing I would say is profitable, yes, but if you can reuse, the byproduct of Bitcoin mining is heat. So if you can reuse that heat, you can be profitable. Whether you're like in New York, they're heating a bathhouse right now with Bitcoin miners. There's a lot of people, like we see a groundswell of people who are trying to buy used parts and then reverse engineer the commands to figure out how they can build, these single board systems and then expand and scale. There's no documentation. There's no one really, that they can, there's like a Discord server of 800 people trying to help each other through. And so we thought, it might not be the most economical, but anyone who's ever mined and the first time any amount of Bitcoin hit their wallet, you're hooked. That's
philosophical reason.
It is. That's all it takes. I can still remember the first time, like 2013. And so we want more people to get that feeling as well. And so if we can put it where it's 110 volts, it's easier for people to use. And look, there's going to be a lot of applications that we can't think of. And so, I almost kind of think of it as like Legos. You give people Legos, you have no idea what they're going to build, but you got to give them those building blocks. And so our mining development kit, that's literally what it is. It's not going to be the most efficient or, the latest edge, but it's going to give people the tools to build these applications of, heat reuse for, heating a greenhouse, heating a pool, heating their bathhouse or a hot tub. Like there is literally no limit on human ingenuity and what people are going to build. And so if you can factor that in with, that feeling of, Bitcoin mining and, supporting the network, and then you've got all these miners kind of spread out everywhere. And, it serves multiple purposes. But yeah, I still remember that feeling. And I think it's one of the best feelings. And the more people that can experience it, the better. Yeah.
You're combining sort of the philosophical things with practical, issue. I was thinking, well, Texans are probably not going to, it's pretty hot here, so we don't need to reuse a lot of heat. But then you're mentioning pools, you're mentioning, greenhouses and different things. I'm like, okay, well, we've got some brutal winters in Texas, and a lot of people don't winterize their pools in Texas, and this could be a solution.
I mean, it's not even, farmhouses, keeping animals warm, electricity. I've seen people dry wood. I've seen people, dry out salmon. Like, there's literally no end. And if you're going to plug power in and use a resistor, you might as well mine Bitcoin with it. And so, it doesn't matter if, like, yes, I'm in Canada, a little colder than Texas, but even in the summer, like, gets cold at night, you can still use it, whether it's your pool, your hot water tank. If it hasn't been built yet, I'm sure it's going to get built soon.
That's fun. I love the engineering challenge that thousands of people will take on.
Yeah, I mean, it's, do we go out and try to build everything, or do we give people the tools to go build everything? And, the one thing we want is as much feedback as we can get. So we're taking a lot of feedback now. We publish a blog, try to keep people up to date on what we're doing. And the amount of the response we've had of when is it coming? When can I get it? Here's what I want to build. People have sent diagrams, ideas. And so it's, it's a different way. It's a different aspect than what happens on the industrial side. But I think the more people we can get involved, the more people we can get educated, just the better it is for the ecosystem.
So that's what I wanted to touch on. It's almost like a starter kit, which I think is fantastic because we need to drive adoption. We need smarter and brighter and more minds in this space to continue growing. You know what I mean? We're only 13 years in at this point, and there's a lot of really creative ideas that can come. And I also think it's like a great entry point, right? Buying a $3,000, $4,000 machine isn't for everybody, but hopefully your guys' kit's a lot less than that.
Yep.
Get people's ideas flowing, get them sparked, and hopefully they can become a part of the industry.
And I'll just add on to that. Well, it's great to have as many people in Bitcoin mining, and if you're democratizing that, that's great, from all aspects of it. There's one other dimension that we're focused upon is that, we actually think that Bitcoin mining can truly help in being a responsible partner of the energy ecosystem. And that includes renewable energy. And renewable energy, sometimes, you have heat or you have solar energy, which is not available everywhere. It is in remote areas or wind power. And so therefore, one of the things that we've been doing in terms of the overall miner that we're designing is to ensure that it can run in rugged operating conditions, which are deployable in areas that may not be hospitable or in a data center. So the ability to run at 50 degrees Celsius or in minus 20 degrees Celsius or in rough conditions, rugged design is critical so that you can also have these miners operate in areas that can support renewable energy as well.
And Sanjay, you guys are sort of breaking the paradigm of this commodity. It's still a commodity, but when you add in the components around demand response and sort of the tuning that you guys have, it breaks this sort of, dollars per terahash commodity mindset that everybody's been under. When you guys are having conversations with large miners, how are you introducing that conversation? Are you combining sort of is there a metric or a model that combines the dollars per terahash plus the savings of the tuning capacity depending upon where they're mining?
Absolutely, Lee. So one of the things, and of course, it's been great feedback from like Ashu at Marathon, from Taylor, CleanSpark, from Perry, from others in the industry. But what we're focusing upon is total cost of ownership. And that theme is resonating very strongly. So for instance, we've heard that a number of miners, they lost a lot of production capacity this year in Texas on the days that it was very hot because it goes over 40 degrees Celsius in a number of days and the miners start operating, the current miners in the industry, right? Or the ability to curtail when it's needed in a very rapid way. That's adding value. So we're looking at the total cost of ownership and we're trying to shift the discussion, very similar, the same car analogy that we're giving, that it's not, you can have a car that can get you from point A to point B, but there's different values that different cars provide in the way that you actually go from point A to point B. The ability to be safe while you're driving, the ability to accelerate rapidly or decelerate, the comfort you have in the car. So that discussion on the total cost of ownership and total value is what we're actually focused upon in the discussion with all of our key partners and customers.
Yeah, and I've been on other side of that discussion. I completely agree with it, that miners have gotten so used to looking at the spec, efficiency, throughput, and price that they have kind of ignored the other TCO components of the mining machines or operations. And none of the deployments today are ideal. They have to change, and I'm sure they will change. I think next year we will probably see less and less air-cooled machines. We're transitioning into immersion, and then from immersion we will go into blade kind of hot swappable hash boards, something like this. There is no reason for each of these miners to have its own PSU. It should be a single HVDC outside and then low voltage conversion on the miner, which will reduce the cost and footprint tremendously.
Or high voltage boards.
Exactly. And then other than that, on the other part of this, ignoring TCO, but the value to Bitcoin, its chain itself, I mean, Bitcoin mining is more than just validating the network. It's also voting on the proposals. With these custom firmware or these collaborative discussions, we can create miners, which puts more power in the hands of miners, like voting on Bitcoin implementation proposals, not just delegating all of that thing to the pool. So it's a lot of opportunities, and we'll see these being unfolding.
So in the last 1 or 2 minutes, we have parting thoughts for the audience about what you're most excited about in the industry. We'll just go down the line.
Sure. I guess the thing I'm excited about is we're going to be coming out with our kit relatively soon. I can't wait to see what people build. and what they use, where they use it. I'd like to have some reemergence of home mining. It doesn't have to be strictly from the economic sense. If the heat reuse article is there, it's great. But if not, we've seen what people have asked for. And, hopefully by the end of the year, they start sending us their projects, what they've done, what they built. That's what really excites me.
I mean, I think I'm most excited for another bull run, which I think everybody in this room can agree with. But with the bull run also comes a lot of innovation, right? So if you look at like 2015, 16, 17, companies like Bitfury, a company like my own TMG, really pushed what miners were, right? Like big backplanes, two-phase immersion tanks, hot swappable hash cards, things like that. I want to see us come back to innovating in that space, which is why I'm excited. More bright minds coming into the space from projects like Perry. Hopefully the price comes back and we start to see those types of innovations. Really excited to see, What's Miner, Aerodyne, these companies starting to listen to the large miners and build products that not only work better for us, but also that work better for the home miners and everybody else, right? So innovation, innovation, innovation.
So I'll actually echo that theme, but I'll have a slightly different twist from Taylor. So I'm very excited about innovating for the Bitcoin mining future and for ongoing, but leading that innovation from North America. There's a North American Blockchain Summit. I think North America has to be at the forefront of innovation. I think we've not. And I think that innovating and leading the innovation charge for Bitcoin mining from North America, I'm very excited about.
And I'll just end by saying that ASIC chips, they have a pain point, which is tremendous heat density, but which is the necessity which leads to innovation, which is not just applicable for Bitcoin mining, but also traditional data centers, and can be very relevant in this AI HPC hype cycle by creating cooling technologies which can tremendously lower the PUE and the cooling overhead of our data centers.
Well, guys, I talk and think and read about this industry quite a bit, and I still learn quite a bit on the panel, and I'm sure the audience did as well. Guys, put your hands together for our knowledgeable panelists.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out to the 2023 North American Blockchain Summit. It was the best summit yet. We look forward to hosting you again next year. If you enjoyed the summit or like what you saw in this video, be sure to subscribe. If you're interested in learning more about membership in the TBC, go to texasblockchaincouncil.org to learn more.